Hello, in this session, we are going to learn how we can leverage existing Kubernetes cluster to deploy Jenkins container and start learning GitOps framework for network automation. Prerequisites for this session would be an existing GitHub repository where we can commit the code, Kubernetes cluster, and some basic understanding of Docker because we are going to leverage Docker files for creating some containers. Before we move further ahead, we need to understand some basics about Jenkins, about what is Jenkins, right? So Jenkins is an open source automation software which helps the developer to build, test, and deploy their softwares. We can think it of as a tool which can offer capability of continuous integration and continuous deployment in DevOps lifecycle. Architecturally speaking, Jenkins connect with any repository or SCM and pulls the latest commit periodically or as per the configuration by the CI server. Build server then builds the image for the code, and if no issues are found, the CD server deploys the artifact to the target location, hence automating a lot of manual effort by the developers. If the same concept can be utilized in networking domain, where build and configuration of the networking device can be managed via declarative statements, it brings the benefit of structured, reusable, time efficient, and time saving methods to network implementation as well. Now let's start with the session. Very first, we need to build a container which can run Jenkins server as well as Terraform within the same container. Now for this, what do we need to create? We need to create a Docker file which will help us to create the container image. In this, I have listed all the required commands to be run for implementing Jenkins as well as Terraform. So the base image that you can see here is being used as Jenkins LTS, and I'm running all the commands as a root user, running all the apt-get command to update the operating system and running the Terraform file. Post that, I will build the Docker container image using the docker build command with the specified tag. Now we can see the build has already been started. Now here you can see everything is cached because I have ran this command earlier for the same code. So it is taking the image from the previous cached data. Similarly, once it is done, I am pushing the Docker image now to my GitHub container repository, from where I can then utilize the same image into my Kubernetes file. At this stage, we have our images ready, which can be deployed onto the Kubernetes cluster. Now let's check how we can deploy Jenkins server in the Kubernetes cluster. For this, we need persistent volume claim for storing the data by the Jenkins server, right? Service account, services, and the container, of course. All of the above have been defined in various YAML files. Now here, one thing to make sure is that um, in the deployment YAML, you should have the image name of the container image which is recently being built. As shown in the screen as well, I am changing the version of the tag so that I can install the latest image version onto my cluster. Similarly, now we are looking over the services where we are utilizing the node port because this is not a cloud-based, cloud-hosted Kubernetes cluster. This is a local, so we are not leveraging the load balancer type here. We are just leveraging the node type. Now we are looking into the service account YAML where we have defined the cluster role, service account, and cluster role bindings for the service account to access different resources into the Kubernetes cluster and how that can be bound. The service account and the cluster role can be bound through cluster role bindings. Next up, we are looking into the persistent volume YAML, where we are defining the storage class persistence volume and persistent volume claim. The persistent volume is basically attached with the var folder of the node where the pod will be created, and persistent volume claim is to integrate the persistent volume that we have created with the container that we will be building. So that is the file that we have created over here. Now that we see all the YAMLs that were to be utilized for creating various resources, I will just use apply command, kubectl apply command, to build all the necessary artifacts. As you can see, once we run the apply command, all the required artifacts are getting created over here, be it the volume, service account, services, and the deployment itself. Just have a look in a couple of minutes. The deployment file is also run. Yeah, there it goes. Deployment is also getting run. And once this file is available, you can see our pod is up and running. And here you can see the container is getting created. Here I am just listing all the resources which are present inside my namespace GitOps. So there we can see the container is getting created. Now when we do a describe for that container, we can see what is happening inside that container. So as you can see from the log, the container is started. The Jenkins services and everything within that has been started. Once you get this, you can access the GUI for this tool by accessing the node IP where the pod is scheduled. Here the pod is my pod is getting scheduled in node 1, so I'll be using that IP along with the node port that we have defined. So here 31,100 is the node port that is defined. So I'll just go to my browser and run the command. And here we can see copying this the node port, and once I do this, I will be opening my Jenkins server here. Now we are at our deployment page. So yeah, now the Jenkins page has opened. When you install it for the first time, it will ask for initial password, which you will get from the container logs. So I'm just running a container log command to fetch out the logs from the specific container. There the initial password will be mentioned. I'm just copy pasting this password from the log into my Jenkins server, and there you go. It will ask you to install all the required plugins. So I am installing all the necessary or the required plugins over here. So it'll take some time. I have just cut out the portion over here to save some time. So it is going to take some 15 to 20 minutes to install all the required plugins. Once the plugins get installed, then it will ask you to create the first admin user for the Jenkins server for you to log in into the server. Now just provide your username password that you want to create, and there you go. Once you are done, you will be entering into the server. So click on save and continue. It will validate the Jenkins URL that you have mentioned is correct, and then you are just done. Now we will start a Jenkins journey. So this is the landing page that you will receive once the Jenkins server gets started. Now let's start building our first pipeline. Just give whatever name as you may want. I'm just giving here the name as test, and I'll be selecting a freestyle project over here and click OK. and it will ask you further more details to set up your pipeline. Yeah. So yeah, it is loading the page. Okay, now that we have, I will be selecting the GitHub project that I have, which I had already created. I'm just copying that link and will be pasting it to the project URL. Okay, now the source code management that we have mentioned it. Provide your username and password. Please make sure GitHub does not allow username and password to be entered over here. So you need to use the PAT token to log in into the GitHub account. So provide your PAT so that you are able to access the GitHub over CLI. So once I select, this error message will also be gone, yeah, because it has authenticated, validated it. The next step is I will be using the GitHub hook trigger, because what I need is on the trigger of every push and pull, it should run the pipeline. For that, we also need to make some settings in our GitHub as well. So you go to settings, under that you go to hooks, there you will define the webhook. So I'll just go click on add webhook. This is going to ask me validate my access. Suppose I provide my access, it will be done. So I'll give the URL of my Jenkins server over here. Along with one important thing is, so you need to mention GitHub webhook in the URL so that it can access the webhook along with the content type to be set as JSON. Yeah, that's it, you're done. And you can customize what all trigger that you want. For me, I wanted pull and push requests only. And yeah, that's it. We are done with this setup. Now that we have done our setting for in the Jenkins server and in the GitHub as well, let's do some commit and check whether our pipeline is getting triggered or not. For that, we first need to do some git init in the folder so that we can do some commit to the Git repository. I am just utilizing the same folder. I'll be pushing this Docker file and main.tf that I have within this folder to the GitHub repository, for which I am just adding them to the stage location. Now I'm just providing the remote URL so that it can push to this particular repository, and yeah, then we're done. This command is, we will be doing a commit to this code. We are running a git commit over here, so providing a commit message. That is the first one. So commit is done, and we are only left with the push part. So as we have already mentioned, the push is a trigger for the webhook to trigger the pipeline. Along with that, I'm also running a Terraform plugin as well, because I wanted to integrate Terraform with my pipeline. So for that, we need to install the Terraform plugin into our Jenkins server. You will see that it is getting installed. Once it gets installed, you can go to the cloud manager, manage Jenkins, and we are going to global tool configuration, where we'll be making the required configuration changes for Terraform. In Terraform, we will mention the name of the Terraform, which command we would like to use, and where the Terraform is installed. Now you remember, we have created a specific Terraform container for this. So I'm just utilizing the same location where my Terraform command will be installed in that container, and then we are done. Now I'll create a new pipeline for Terraform script only. So I'll just mention the name as Terraform and select pipeline for my defining my Terraform pipeline. And select and click OK. Then as usual we will provide the GitHub URL over here where my Terraform will become, yeah, that is done. The GitHub webhook will be defined, and in the pipeline script I'm not selecting the SCM. I'm just using the pipeline script. For this you can also utilize the pipeline syntax that they have provided a very good documentation on top of that. So I'm just writing my pipeline script based on the syntax that they have provided. So I just need, first is I need to check out my GitHub repository. So for that I am going to use, and then I'm going to run Terraform init in this pipeline. That's it. So that is being done over here. So I've mentioned what tool I'm going to utilize because it is going to look for that specific tool location to use that binary executable for running the Terraform command. After that, we'll mention various stages for the pipeline. So we'll mention the different stages that we want to execute. So first is stage 1 is checkout, as I have already mentioned. So first I'm doing a checkout. Then we will have steps within the stages to specify what exactly do we need to do with that particular stage, other than that specific stage, what exactly we need to do. So this is for the checkout, and the next stage we will need require for the Terraform init. A similar one. We are mentioning all the different stages that we require. Currently we are looking into Terraform init. So this is just an outline for the stages. We can utilize the pipeline syntax tool for taking up the exact pipeline details. From here I am utilizing this details. So I will take up all the checkout and SH, whatever we need that can be provided over here, and will be added back. Okay, now our second pipeline is also ready. We need to go back to our first pipeline and attach these two pipelines together. How we can do that? We'll go back in the configure section and we'll go to the post build action and add build other project. So we are just providing the name of our other pipeline. That's it. We are done with this. Just validating everything is code. Okay, the trigger will be triggered only if the other build is stable. It is all perfectly fine when we save it. Now that we are done with this, we'll go back again to our command line where we had committed our code and everything. Now there I'm going to push the code to the GitHub repository. Okay, I'm making some more changes so that I can make some commit over here. And the changes are now committed to the repository as well. This will be updated into few minutes, or it might take some seconds to update it. That's it, we are done. And the final command that we have over here is to push. Yeah, once the push is done, then we can see in the build queue, the test pipeline is there in the build queue. And this will move from the queue to execute. As you can see, it has moved. So test is executing, and simultaneously, once this test has successfully built, it will trigger the Terraform pipeline as well. So the Terraform pipeline is also executed now. So we have only committed, we have not done a single click on this pipeline. It's only a single commit or push to the particular code has triggered the pipeline in this Jenkins server. And yes, both of our pipeline have been successfully executed. We can go and check in its console output as well what exactly has happened with the Terraform. So this is just a initial step that you can look at to deep dive into the GitOps world, how we can leverage the Terraform, Kubernetes, and other automation tools that are already available. Now, on top of that, we can build all the complex pipelines based on this as well. So yeah, that's it for today's session. See you soon in upcoming sessions as well.